Hi there. Sorry I was taking care of some serious business. Speaking of serious business, please enjoy this clip from Mornings with Mike Winters, which, by the way, you can watch the show in its entirety at roswellstalkfm.com.
Studio this morning is Justin Ellis from Builders Do It Center. Good morning. How you doing?
I'm good, Mike. How are you doing this morning?
Doing pretty good. Just like everybody else, trying to avoid the hotness. And
It's no small challenge.
And probably not succeeding based on intel I just heard a few minutes ago. So.
Yeah.
But how are things? I would imagine. Now, let me ask. With just overall, when this gets going on, it's 105. Do you see a drop in business or an increase? I mean.
All of the above. A shift is a good word. Yeah. So our business changes when it gets really hot like this because our contractor customers keep working because people don't really care that it's hot.
Sure.
You adapt. You start earlier in the day. So we sell lots of specialty equipment for the heat, cooling pads and water jugs and stuff like that. Plus folks are working on their air conditioners to get those working and get themselves back in the safety of indoor refrigerated air.
That's when you find out it's not working is generally like this, not when it's pleasant out.
No, nobody checks anything until it's hot, me included, for the record.
Right.
So, we actually do see a decent uptick in business. People start thinking about spending time outdoors in the evenings when it gets warm like this.
Yeah, which is segue to what we're talking about here today. When it gets in the evenings, in the weekends, we love to, we just love to barbecue and cook out and have fun get-togethers in our backyards and things like that. But it kind of stinks when you go in your backyard and you have like no patio or it's a patio, but maybe it's from as old as maybe the 50-year-old house you live in. And wood, though treated, can last a long time, does not last forever, especially if it's not taken care of and things like that. So
absolutely.
If it is time to replace or upgrade or patch or something like that, you've got a lot of useful information for folks here.
Yeah, we do, yeah. So when you're thinking about your outdoor living space, it's really an extension of your home. It's a outdoor living room or an outdoor kitchen.
Sure.
And you should take care of it that way. It's one of the best ways to add value to a home and to help if you're reselling a home. Think about that as an extension of the living space because it's basically free space for the buyer.
Sure.
But while you're living there, it's some of the best parts of the house. We're really lucky in New Mexico that even with our heat, you can use an outdoor patio or a deck 9 months out of the year pretty consistently.
Yeah.
You can use it year-round depending on how hardcore you are about grilling.
Sure.
And as a result, it's a really good investment. But one of the keys to think about is how you want to build and maintain that so that you can enjoy it. Nothing's worse than building something and doing it at 50% of the way you should have done it and then having to spend all your time and energy maintaining it rather than enjoying it.
Sure. This is based on personal experience from my dad growing up and his shenanigans when it comes to home improvement. But I think if people tend to, like if someone's going to go, like when they go inside and they do things, they tend to be a little bit more meticulous. Where they get outside, the term I'm thinking of I can't say on the radio, but it's basically they kind of, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be level or and they kind of seem to, the shoddy work tends to come out. I don't know if it's because you're outside or something, but if something's going to get jacked up, it's usually this area right here.
It's a very common one.
Yeah.
So we hear some horror stories on decks and patios, and decks in particular. You have to be very conscious of how you're building things.
Yeah.
This is a load-bearing structure. People are going to be on it. Every summer you hear horror stories of folks that are on decks that collapse in different parts of the country because they weren't built properly or they weren't maintained properly over the course of years. And folks have a party and they get 20 or 30 of their closest friends out on the deck that probably only should have had 10 on it to begin with, but wasn't built to hold 5, and the thing falls off the side of the building. So you have to be very conscious of that and think through the process and make sure that you're building up to code and in a safe manner.
I would imagine probably, especially if it's a deck that's like off a second floor or something, there's permits and stuff involved in all that. That's not just a backyard do-it-yourselfer thing.
Any decking project in which the structure is attached to a home, you're going to require a permit for.
Gotcha.
The building code will require that. And my recommendation would be that you just get a permit for anything because then you don't have to worry about not having a permit. the city likes that too, and always want to support the city.
Absolutely. Yeah.
or county or state, depending upon where you're at.
Right.
But yes, definitely, there are codes for decks, and they have changed in the last few years. There's lots of new requirements that have come out of some of those tragedies to add additional hardware and change how certain things are framed that are really pretty good. There's lots of stuff that was done previously in decks, both by professionals and do-it-yourselfers, that not only was unsafe, but frankly, it just wasn't very good.
Right.
And if you avoid those practices, you can spend a few more dollars and a little more time and end up with something that's going to hold up a lot better over the course of time.
Gotcha. Now, when it comes to the decks, I mean, like he's talking about technology and the way things are done have changed, but not only that, the materials
They have.
of which you use is different. Talk a little bit about the differences here. I mean, wood is wood, but I mean, there's types of wood. There's the recycled wood. There's faux wood or whatever they call it. I mean,
there's tons of options now. Yeah, and I've got a few in front of me. The old standby is traditional treated lumber.
Mm-hmm.
This is a 2x6, 2x4, 5/4 by 6 decking, some sort of material that is treated with a chemical, either MCQ, which is micronized copper quaternary, or ACQ, which is azole copper quaternary.
Big words.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that I can get those out should scare both of us.
I'm impressed.
You do this long enough, you get to spit out those things and sound like you know what you're talking about. That product, that chemical protects that wood from rot.
Okay.
It's going to protect it from getting eaten by termites and that sort of thing. What it doesn't do is protect it from the sun.
Gotcha.
And that's why when you put down a treated deck every year, at least in our area, you can get away with every 2 years, but I highly recommend doing it every year. You need to treat with a product.
Okay.
A Thompson's Wood Seal, Penethan, Defy. There's a number of good products that we carry that will all protect that from the sun, which
Okay.
is really what beats up stuff around here. In all honesty, in New Mexico, nothing really rots.
Right.
It gets sunburned, essentially.
But these will also protect from moisture as well, right?
They
the
do.
same that protect from sun, protect from moisture.
Absolutely, yep. And moisture is a concern as well. Now what we're seeing come out with, and this is actually a brand new product for us, is I've got two pieces of wood on the table for those of you that are watching online or coming back and looking at our video of this on YouTube, either on the radio station's channel or on Builders Do It Center's channel. There's a couple of pieces that are red. Now, these are treated lumber. These are southern yellow pine, just like the green treated. They have the same ACQ or MCQ treatment. But in addition to that, they have a product called Duracolor that they're treated with.
Okay.
That adds this red hue to it that I personally think is very attractive.
Sure.
And it actually ages out really nice. After this has been on for a couple of years, it holds up and gets to a really, really attractive brown color.
Okay.
This product is going to have that sunscreen built in.
Okay.
Now, eventually you will need to retreat, but it's like a 5-year period instead of a 1-year period, which means you have 5 years of enjoying that deck with very little maintenance.
Okay.
Now, one of the great things about this, too, is cost-wise, this product is only 15, 20, 25% more than the inexpensive treated lumber.
Which you might save in money on sealants and everything else.
Absolutely.
Right.
And in any low-maintenance deck product, you're going to be ahead of the game on that. And so lots of times if folks are looking at decking and they can't their budget does not allow them to upgrade to a synthetic or a composite decking that we're going to talk about in a second, we'll really recommend that they look at products like Duracolor because they're going to get some short-term benefit and end up with a better product but still be able to afford it. And I personally just like it. I think it's a really pretty deck.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thus, the other product I've got with me, a chunk of 2x4, this is redwood.
Okay.
Natural construction common grade redwood. Very traditional products for decking. Lots of decks built out of redwood. It's very beautiful once it's down. But redwood had some drawbacks as well. It is significantly more expensive than treated. It's 2 to 3 times the price of standard treated decking in the same size. It's becoming more and more difficult to get because there are fewer redwood trees that can be harvested sustainably.
Okay.
One thing we don't want to do in our industry is ever overharvest a resource. Unfortunately, the lumber industry has gotten a bad rap for being a destroyer of forests, which really isn't the case. The forest industry plants more trees than they cut down in any given year. But with redwood, there's only a few places in California that redwood can grow, and basically there's only one where they grow and can be replanted and reharvested over time.
Okay.
And so as a result, there's actually only 2 redwood lumber mills left in the whole world.
Wow.
So that product continues to get more expensive and harder to get.
Because the supply is much less than the demand.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
So as a result, we're selling fewer and fewer redwood decks. it's still a fantastic product. It's very strong. It's naturally fire resistant, so there's some areas where this is a great option. But it still requires maintenance.
Gotcha.
You don't have to treat this. It will not rot if you don't treat it. Redwood is naturally resistant to bugs. It's naturally resistant to rot, fungus, mold, all those things because of the tannins in the wood. But it will gray. Some people love that driftwood gray color of an older redwood deck, and it's a beautiful look on the right house. But if you want the red color, you're going to have to treat it just like you would the treated lumber in order to maintain that appearance.
Okay.
So if you're wanting something low maintenance, basically for the life of the deck, and you've got it in your budget, and in all honesty, the budget's not too bad, or the price is not too bad on a lot of these products, we really recommend going to a synthetic decking.
Okay. Hey, real quick, before we get on the woods, we talk about and we talk about the treatment things, but as far as structural strength, are pines are generally a softer wood than say oak or something like that. Does that make a difference in the if you're doing load bearing stuff on those types of woods, things like that?
Sure. So hardwoods and softwoods actually don't really have anything to do with the strength or hardness of the lumber.
Okay.
Hardwoods are coming from deciduous trees versus softwoods are coming from evergreen trees or coniferous trees.
Okay.
So it's basically a species difference. Southern yellow pine, which is what most of the treated lumber that we handle in this market comes from, is actually a really hard, very strong product. Strength-wise, it's comparable to oak.
Okay.
Douglas fir is another species that's a softwood, but it's very, very hard. You can ask any carpenter whether he'd prefer to drive a nail into a piece of spruce, which is strong, but it's a relatively soft wood that we use for a lot of framing applications, or a piece of southern yellow pine.
Okay.
He'd much rather drive a nail into the spruce because it's softer.
Gotcha.
And as a result, virtually everything we're going to talk about here today, including redwoods, is going to come from a softwood tree.
Okay.
Most construction lumber, except for cabinet grade materials, are softwoods because they're so much faster growing and so much more plentiful. We can harvest that product a lot more sustainably.
Okay.
And at a significantly lower cost. If you wanted to build everything out of oak, it'd be stout, but it would get expensive fast.
Gotcha. So it's just a matter of thickness of posts and things like that.
Absolutely.
For the strength-wise, not necessarily the type of wood used.
Absolutely. And if you're planning a deck construction project, you can come see us. We have some tools available to us to help size those joists, posts, and beams in order to make sure that everything is strong enough to hold up to your needs.
Okay, perfect. I was curious about that. So.
No, that's a really good question, actually. That's a very critical one.
Good, because I have zero knowledge in this stuff, so my questions, I'm always wondering, like, am I asking one of these general knowledge questions that everybody but me knows? And
that's okay. There's no stupid questions, only the stupid ones you don't ask.
Yeah.
So,
but
anytime we're talking about framing for a deck, we generally are going to recommend just regular old treated lumber.
Okay.
It's the least expensive option. It holds up just fine in that application because it's not getting any sun, and no matter what you put on top of it, it's hidden.
Right.
So 80+% of the time, we recommend going to a green treated material. Now, if somebody does want to upgrade that, we have access to some steel-based framing systems that screw together. If you are very conscious of never wanting to have to do anything to this deck ever again, and possibly your grandchildren not having to do that, that product's called Trex Elevations.
Okay.
And it's a neat product, but you do pay for the convenience
of
never having to do anything with it ever again.
Sure.
So, regardless of what you frame it with, that top layer is really ultimately where the most dollars are. There's more material in your surface of your deck. And
most maintenance involved there, too.
It's 90% of your maintenance, at least. So that's when you really start thinking about, okay, if you can afford it, you want a true no maintenance or a low maintenance deck.
Sure.
My own home, I have a synthetic composite deck on it, which is what we're kind of, it's the cutting edge in the industry. It's not a new product. Trex was one of the original brands, and it's a brand name that many people are familiar with. We put sold the material that went into the very first Trex composite deck anywhere in southeast New Mexico. That's the bridge between the convention center and the museum here in Roswell. That was probably put in 1992, 94, somewhere in that area. The city is right now, about to replace that bridge.
Yeah.
Now, those first generation products, you could put down any color you want, and they were going to be gray after about 2 years. That's a great example. I believe that was a brown deck originally. It's stone gray now.
Okay.
New products don't have that issue. They're much more color fast. In fact, virtually every manufacturer on the market guarantees their product against color fading to a certain percentage. 10, 15% is not covered. Everything above that would be warranted. And we don't have issues with color fastness. The brand we primarily handle is a brand called Fiberon.
Okay.
And Fiberon, they're one of the other original 2 or 3 companies. They've got a great track record with R&D and having very cutting-edge, durable products. They have a good track record of dealing with warranty issues if they do happen, because any company is going to have warranty claims. It's a question of how they deal with those warranty claims.
Sure.
We also just prefer the product. We think they offer some really nice stuff, and we actually stock 5 different colors in 3 different series of Fiberon decking in our yard.
Okay. Cool.
So
I'm about to
just
ask a
give some
dumb
options.
question, maybe, but I'm curious. With the synthetics, obviously these are pre-treated. They're protecting from fading sun. And like you said, they're highly resistant to color fade and things like that. What does happen if, say, you do put Thompson's Weather Seal or something like on that? Is there a benefit? Are you ruining it, or
You're going to avoid the
wasting your
warranty.
money? Okay.
And ruin it.
Okay.
It won't absorb into the product. In fact, most of what we carry and most what of the industry has gone to now has a capstock on it. So
Okay.
the core is a composite product made of plastic and wood mixed together, and then it has a virgin polyethylene of a different kind of plastic on the surface.
Okay.
That's been about a 4-year-old innovation. What they discovered was that the composite products that have been around forever that are the core of this are very strong. They're inexpensive relative to solid plastic, and they work very well, but what they don't do is they don't hold up really, really well to the weather. They tend to be scratched. They can absorb things. They have a tendency to get some surface mold issues because they do have some exposed wood fiber,
Okay.
all of which can be cleaned off, but it's inconvenient. The polyethylene, on the other hand, holds up very well to the weather. It can't really be stained because it's impermeable. It doesn't have any issues with surface mold, but it's A, kind of expensive, and B, it's not all that strong. So they apply it as a surface finish on top of the inner core of the board.
Okay.
So if you did apply, say, a Thompson's Wood Seal or Water Seal, which is a different product, this is a common mistake we see. Thompson's Water Seal is actually not really very good for wood.
Okay.
It's great for masonry.
Okay. So cement, concrete,
Yeah,
things like that.
block, brick, that sort of thing. Thompson's Wood Seal is a better product for applying to wood.
Okay.
So we always try to steer folks to the Wood Seal product depending upon
I would
their
have
application.
completely made that mistake.
It happens every day. And Water Seal will work on wood. It just does not absorb really well into the surface of it, and therefore you end up with finish issues.
Okay.
It cracks. It gets gummy if you don't
Filmy
get it on
kinda.
just right. Versus the Wood Seal really soaks in. And we actually recommend other products. Penafin is my personal favorite brand. Penafin makes a lot of great products.
Okay.
They do make a product called Knotwood, spelled with a K, that is a finish for older synthetic decks.
Okay.
So let's say you did have an older synthetic deck like that one at the Civic Center that is 100% composite product, no capstock on it, and it's showing its age. It's 15, 20-year-old deck. There's a lot of those out there. It was brown originally. It's gray now. Knotwood can be applied to the surface of that product and will actually rejuvenate it and make it look new again.
Okay.
Really interesting product. And there's a couple other products out there, but they are made specifically for use on composite decking.
Okay.
If you applied any of those products to a capstock deck, it would literally just beat up and roll off.
Gotcha.
All the maintenance you ever need to do to a capstock deck is wash it. A pressure washer if it's gotten really nasty, but in all honesty, a garden hose works fantastic. I have a capstock deck at my home. I take a garden hose to it once or twice a year. I put a broom on it once a month to knock stuff off. The other thing is if you happen to get a surface stain, you can wash it with soap and water.
Okay.
Dishwasher detergent or a dishwashing detergent and a stiff bristle brush is all you ever want to use. You don't
Okay.
want to use sandpaper. Don't want to use anything that's going to be super aggressive with an acid or a base. Formula 409 works very well on synthetic decks, actually.
Okay.
Or Simple Green is the other product we recommend.
Oh, cool.
And that's all the maintenance you should ever have to do to that deck.
Now, as far as structural stuff with those, is it better than, as far as, obviously there's probably not going to be the rotting issues that wood has, but I mean, do you have those kind of issues where over time they do degrade or anything, or?
There have been a few brands that have had specific issues that have had warranty claims on them.
Yeah.
We honestly have sold some of those brands in the past. I've personally got a little gun shy about synthetics, and we're very picky about who we'll sell because we don't want to have those issues
Sure.
happening on our customers' jobs. The most significant problem that you have to keep an eye out for is just making sure that it's built right the first time.
Gotcha.
One of the things we're becoming aware of now is actually the fact that if not properly designed, when you put a synthetic deck product on top of a treated deck frame, where you'll actually run into issues is that the deck board will be in good condition, but you'll run into rot in certain places on the deck. So when you apply this decking over the top of the joist, you're going to run a fastener vertically down into that joist. It's a really good place for water to sit.
Gotcha.
So one of the things we're starting to recommend is protecting the top of that joist. There used to be a couple of products on the market that did this. Unfortunately, those companies have actually gone away. I'm actually in the middle of conversations right now with one of our roofing accessory manufacturers. They are going to develop a product based on our suggestions for protecting the top of this joist. And essentially, it's just a peel and stick membrane that would go on the top of the I-joist. And we have some alternatives right now. So if you're working on a project, we can give you some pointers before that product comes out.
Okay.
What that's going to do is it's going to protect the top of this joist. And I did this on my own deck at home. And it's going to seal that hole around the joist, around the nail or the screw that's going into the top of that joist. And it extends the life of that joist so that your frame lasts as long as your deck. Because we're actually running into situations where the decking is in perfectly good condition, but the fasteners have rotted out, or the area around the fasteners, if they're stainless steel, which is what we recommend to extend the life of the product,
Sure.
has started to rot out, which is kind of an interesting problem. Not something that's historically been a problem with decking.
Yeah.
Because the material was the same for the deck surface and the framing, and so they either rotted at the same rate or the surface rotted faster because it was getting more sun abuse.
So it's almost like the technology of the fasteners need to catch up with the technology of the decking.
The technology of the framing, really.
Yeah.
The fasteners actually have held up fine.
Okay.
It's what's happening is that fastener is basically creating a little hole in the wood that can't drain.
Gotcha.
And so you get 4 or 5 drops of water and they just sit there. And eventually it will rot. Even though it's a treated material,
Sure.
it still is subject to some rotting.
Sure.
Depending upon the application.
I would imagine it's even a bigger nightmare for more moist climates where then you have mold issues that probably form and everything else. Here it's not so bad. So mildew, things like that.
Yeah, mildew. We don't really have surface mold or surface mildew issues. We do have some tendency to get large rotting. I mean, it can happen. Termites aren't as big of a problem here, but we do get dry rot from sun abuse. The sun weakens the structure, and then some microbes will get in there and start beating it up. You know, anybody with an older home that has wood trim anywhere on the exterior of the home can probably find some dry rot.
Yeah.
My home being another great example.
But at least you have the know-withal to what to do about it, where most of us don't.
Yeah, I may or may not have the ambition, but I do know how to do it. Unfortunately, ambition pills are kind of running behind the market. We're looking forward to having those available for customers because we all need them from time to time when it comes to these projects.
Maybe design a product that's like a hat or something, and it's just a stick with a boot. And
there you go.
It swings back and hits you in the butt.
That's a fantastic idea. Yeah, get to it. The get to it hat. Yeah. I like it. So
we're got a few more minutes here, running short on time, but I guess where I want to go is you mentioned a couple. When it comes to decks, patios, either as an owner, as one building one, what's like the mother mistakes, the big ones, the general common things that people usually screw up?
The most common issues is folks undersize their joists if they're building a new deck, so they're trying to span a joist being the vertical member of a frame that is actually going to carry that piece of decking, and it's probably one of the most critical pieces of the whole assembly. They undersize those and they make them too small, and so they end up with a deck that's springy.
Okay.
That's not fun. I'm of the opinion if you can't walk out on your deck, jump up and down, and have zero movement, you probably need to put more framing in it.
Yeah.
That's one very common issue. Another one is notching posts. Especially when attaching railings. So, railing is a critical part of any deck that's more than 18 inches off the ground.
Sure.
Code requires that you have a railing of some sort, subject to some specific restrictions. A lot of times when putting those railings in, folks won't get a good attachment for their posts to the deck. And so you go up and you touch the railing and the whole thing moves. Well, that's kind of unsafe because somebody leans on it, they can fall through.
Sure.
Plus, it doesn't feel good. It's not a solid way to do it. So you want to make sure that your detail for attaching your posts to your rim joist, being the joist that goes around the outside of the deck, needs to be really, really solid. When it comes to maintenance, some of the biggest issues we see are folks want a solution in a bottle. They want something spray on, and that's all they have to do.
Mop and glow type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Doesn't work. Deck maintenance is really a 2-step or a 3-step process. You have to come in and clean that deck very well. If it's been long enough, pressure washing may be the right solution. You may need to sand a few areas if there's some significant surface spalling or splintering, and then you have to treat it with a product that's appropriate for that material, and make sure that you get it, thoroughly treated. It may take multiple treatments depending on how much soaks into the wood.
Sure.
The other thing is to think about whether you want, if you are doing that maintenance, whether you want a transparent or a solid product. A transparent product is just going to enhance the color of the wood. It'll still provide a sunscreening effect, but it pretty much leaves the surface in the condition you found it. There are solid stains that are going to leave the surface in the condition you found it, but they're going to change the color completely. If you want your deck a solid brown, not light brown here and dark brown there, solid brown, a solid acrylic stain's a really good choice.
Okay.
If you want to actually cover the surface of the deck, there are a number of new products. We carry Rust-Oleum products, and they have a product called Restore, either 3X or 10X, depending upon the grade you want. That's actually an elastomeric coating that sits on top of the deck board. If you have a deck that's in really nasty condition, surface-wise, but structurally is just fine, you don't have lots of curling or warping or anything like that, those Restore products are a really good choice because at a reasonable cost, you can get a new deck appearance. And it'll hold up very, very well over time. Gotcha. At a reasonable cost.
Okay. Now, when you talk about stains, probably paints more. If someone decided they want to paint the deck, do you need to go behind those again with your sealants and stuff, or does the paint provide some of that?
I would actually discourage folks from painting decks.
Okay.
In general, for a couple of reasons. One, paints sit on the surface of wood, so unless they're a very high-grade paint or coating product like that Restore I was just mentioning, they're going to rub off with foot traffic.
Gotcha.
Stains are different from paints in that they soak into the wood. So if you want the look of a paint, use a solid color stain
Gotcha.
as opposed to a solid color paint.
Okay.
In either case, the coating you're applying is going to serve to protect it and is used instead of a transparent wood protecting product like a Thompson's wood sealer or a Penethin type product.
So it'd be kind of waste of money to go behind you afterwards.
It would actually have the same effect. If you did the job right with the first coating, it would have the same effect as trying to put that coating on a synthetic deck. It would beat up and roll off the surface. One actual really critical tip is if you are thinking about using a transparent finish on top of your product, or any finish really on top of an existing deck or a new deck to protect it after you've put it in, you want to take a little water and you want to sprinkle that water on the surface of the deck. If it beads up, don't treat it unless you pressure wash it and get it to the point where that water will soak in.
Okay.
Because what's happening is it means there's either too much water already in the wood and it needs to dry out, or there's an existing finish. And so anything you try to put on top of it is going to do the same thing that water did. It's going to bead up, it's going to roll off.
Okay.
And either you're not going to get any effect, or it'll sit on the surface and then it'll start rubbing off, and it gets really ugly really fast.
Gotcha. So you can actually overkill. Like if if you're putting the sealant on it, and if it's maybe designed for 5 years instead of 1 year, and you're doing it 1 year, you're actually doing more harm than good.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. We're about out of time. Is there anything you wanted to share that we just got sidetracked on, or?
No, I would say we covered most of it when it comes to decks. Patios are a whole other conversation. Whether you have a deck or a patio, if you're thinking about doing a maintenance project or a replacement project, new concrete, new paving stones, even exterior tile on a patio, which is very, very popular in our area, come and see us. We can help you select the right products. We can help you design a deck. We can help you find a contractor if you think this is a project best left to a professional, which it may be for your situation.
Sure.
Whatever you're doing, we'd be happy to guide you to that right product. We have an extensive showroom of decking materials as well as materials for patios, and we can show you some options and help you really understand where the costs are and find what fits in your budget and your needs.
And if you're need help design issues, like where you want it to go, how to wrap it here, or
absolutely.
If you just need a standard rectangle deck, whatever it is.
Yep, whatever it is. We're happy to walk you through all those details.
Well, maybe next time we need to devote on the patio stuff, the tiles.
It's not a bad idea.
Maybe even barbecues. I want to talk about barbecues at some point.
Barbecues are fun. Outdoor kitchens are a blast.
Yeah, so maybe we can work on those in the next couple of these. That'd be kind of fun.
There you go.
Which gives me an excuse to talk about food, which I can do anytime either, too.
You and me both.
Very good. So appreciate it, Justin. Again, everyone come if you have questions. If it's decking stuff or pretty much any project in your home, outside your home, the folks at Builders Do It Center, they can give you the advice, the tips, the tricks, the equipment, the material, anything you need. And even if you're looking for contractors, point you in the direction for the projects that are a little above your pay grade. So
Absolutely.
good deal. Well, thanks, Justin. Appreciate it. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks, Mike. See
All
you
right.
soon.